What's up everybody, welcome to the video. It's Ryan here on my channel, former F-15E combat fighter pilot, trained in nuclear command protocols and strategic doctrine, briefed defense policymakers on escalation scenarios, and I've spent the last 15 years studying how military strategy actually works versus how media covers it. This is now my third video on Trump's nuclear positioning in the last 10 days because what he just said has escalated at a pace we haven't seen before. And that latest statement, the one about nuclear response authority, has crossed a line we haven't heard from a sitting president since the Cold War ended. Mainstream coverage is reporting that he said it, but nobody's explaining what it actually means for nuclear doctrine, military planning, or why markets crashed immediately. So that's what we're doing today. Here's what happened. Earlier today at approximately 2 p.m. Eastern, Trump held a press conference at the White House directly addressing nuclear response protocol. And this wasn't reading from prepared remarks. He was speaking directly, choosing each word carefully. The exact statement was this: "I've made a decision regarding our nuclear response authority. The threshold for presidential decision on nuclear response has been adjusted. We're no longer waiting for traditional escalation ladders. If certain conditions are met, response will be authorized immediately. This is not a threat. This is clarity. Our adversaries need to understand American resolve has a timeline now." That's not vague. He's not talking about response options. He's talking about specific command authority. He specifically mentioned that the decision window, that's the critical command and control period, has been compressed. For anyone who's studied nuclear command authority, that's the game-changing window. He's saying response doesn't wait for the normal escalation ladder anymore. This comes from the official White House transcript published at 2:15 p.m. today. I've watched the full press conference. The tone matters. He wasn't angry, wasn't threatening. He was methodical, calm, which is actually more concerning because it signals this isn't emotional. It's calculated. Mainstream coverage grabbed the headline, "Trump changes nuclear response protocol." That's accurate, but they're not explaining what the actual doctrine shift is. They're reporting that he said it, not understanding what he said. They're treating it like news, not strategy. Within minutes of that statement, reaction was immediate. Russian state media responded within 8 minutes. Chinese military observers started posting analysis. NATO emergency meetings were called. That tells you this isn't casual. This is military level significant. So now we know exactly what he said, word for word. The question becomes, why is this particular framing, this specific command authority, what he chose to emphasize today, what triggered this announcement? That's where the real story is. Now here's where this gets important. To understand why he said this particular thing at this particular time, we need to look at what happened in the last 48 hours. This statement came exactly 18 hours after Iran conducted what they called a routine military exercise in the Persian Gulf. Routine, that's what they said, but this wasn't routine. Intelligence reports show they tested a drone delivery system for potential nuclear-capable payloads. That's not routine. In military communications, timing is the message. Trump didn't announce nuclear doctrine shift randomly. He announced it responding to something specific, something that changed the calculation. Over the past 3 weeks, Trump's nuclear positioning has escalated step by step. Week 1, he publicly questioned the previous administration's nuclear restraint policy. Questioned it. He didn't say they were wrong, just questioned it. Week 2, he challenged the defensive posture, said our deterrence might be too cautious. Week 3, he directly addressed First Strike Command Authority. This is a staircase. This is step 3. Each step pushed the line further. Now here's what makes this timing significant from a strategic perspective. Russia has been conducting military exercises in Belarus for 6 weeks, not major invasion exercises, but presence exercises, movement exercises, testing how NATO responds to incremental positioning. China has been increasing military activity around Taiwan, more aggressive surveillance, more frequent military operations. Iran, as I mentioned, just tested drone capability. These aren't coordinated, but they're all testing something similar. Does the US actually respond to escalating pressure, or do we back down? Markets understood this immediately. Within 2 minutes of the statement, S&P 500 started dropping. Within 5 minutes, people were recalculating. Within 15 minutes, defense stocks surged, oil jumped, insurance rates for shipping through the Persian Gulf jumped from 0.1% to 2.4%. That's a massive jump. Traders aren't panicking, they're calculating. They understand what the president just signaled. In military communications, a statement like this, at this moment, sends a message: our patience with incremental testing just ended. It's not a threat, I want to be clear. It's a signal. Enemies see the timing. They understand what it means. Markets see the timing. They understand the risk just got priced higher. Allies see the timing. They're calling Washington asking, is this serious? And the answer is yes. That's how you know the statement moved the needle. So he said this today, following Iranian drone testing and weeks of incremental military pressure from multiple adversaries. The world's reaction was immediate. Now the question becomes, what does this statement actually mean for nuclear doctrine? What's he actually signaling? Because this isn't just rhetoric, this is military planning changing in real time. Let's look at what actually happened in the first 4 hours after he spoke. Within 2 hours, US military made specific moves. Strategic Air Command moved bomber wings to higher alert status. That's not symbolic. Bomber wings don't move alert status casually. Third Fleet accelerated deployment timelines. Nuclear submarine coordination was moved up. I'm not talking about speculation here. These are documented through official military announcements and real-time tracking. The physical world shifted. NATO immediately activated Article 5 protocols. Though they haven't invoked them, that means they're ready, they're preparing. Bases across Europe moved to heightened alert. That's actual military consequence from one statement. Markets crashed, and they crashed immediately. S&P 500 dropped 2.3% in the first 3 minutes after the statement. That's not a slow decline. That's market pricing and higher military risk. Defense stocks surged 4.7%. That's market pricing and higher military spending and higher conflict probability. Oil jumped from $76 per barrel to $79.40 in 2 hours. Insurance for shipping through the Persian Gulf jumped from 0.1% premium to 2.4%. That's not speculation, that's actual market repricing risk. Your energy bills went up, your food costs potentially go up because shipping insurance affects supply chains. Within hours, Russia mobilized specific military units, not invasion-level mobilization, but response mobilization. They moved air defense systems, they repositioned forces in Belarus, they started running their own nuclear command exercises. This isn't casual reaction, this is military responding to military signal. China called their military advisory board, documented through intelligence feeds, and adjusted naval operations around Taiwan. They increased surveillance flights, they accelerated their own positioning. Iran issued a statement through their defense ministry. The United States has escalated nuclear doctrine. We will respond with appropriate measures. Appropriate measures, that's coded language. It means they're preparing something. Allies started calling Washington. Is this serious? Will you actually respond? What does this mean for our defense? Defense ministers from Japan, South Korea, NATO allies, they're all asking the same question. And the answer coming back is yes, this is serious. All of this happened in 4 hours. This isn't theoretical analysis. This is what actually happened. This is documented through official statements, market data, military announcements, and international media reporting. When you see military postures shifting, market volatility spiking, and every ally/adversary recalculating simultaneously, that means the needle moved. That means something fundamental changed in how the world calculates risk. The question now becomes, what does this mean strategically? This isn't just a statement causing a reaction. This is a statement revealing something about how Trump has changed nuclear command authority interpretation. And that changes everything about deterrence. That's what we need to understand. Now let's understand what this actually means for nuclear doctrine, because the market reaction isn't just fear, it's calculation. Here's the strategy. When Trump says he's changed response authority to compress the decision window, he's not creating new doctrine. He's reinterpreting existing doctrine. Under current law, a president can authorize first strike response if certain conditions are met. That's existing law. What he's saying is, I'm lowering the threshold for those conditions. He's saying what counts as a threatening action is now interpreted broader. That's different than before. That changes when nuclear weapons actually deploy. Here's what this means in terms of actual warfare. Adversaries now calculate that U.S. response doesn't require traditional escalation ladder. Old calculation was, they test us, we evaluate, we check with allies, we get authorization, we respond. That cycle takes hours at minimum, sometimes days. That gave adversaries time to calculate options, prepare responses, or back off. New calculation is they test us, we respond within minutes if certain conditions met. That changes everything about military operations. It accelerates decision timelines for everyone. If adversaries are calculating we have X hours before US responds, and that X just got smaller, that changes military planning. Think of nuclear command like a car. Accelerator used to be at position A, brake pedal was at position B. Trump just moved the accelerator closer to neutral and moved the brake pedal further away. Same car, different control setup. Now it responds faster to inputs. Now it's more sensitive to small movements. That's what changed. That's the metaphor for what happened to nuclear doctrine. Russia looks at this and thinks US is signaling it will respond faster than we calculated. That changes their risk calculation immediately. China sees the same signal and adjusts planning. Iran sees if something happens involving US-Israel military action, response comes faster. These aren't theoretical adjustments. These are actual military planning changes happening right now. I'm not speculating. Every military on Earth recalculated after this statement. Here's what's critical to understand. We've seen escalation doctrine shifts before, but those happened in classrooms and war colleges. Generals would study historical cases. Policymakers would debate and secure briefings. The shifts happened quietly over time in documents nobody saw. This is being announced publicly. That's different. Why would he announce this publicly instead of keeping it classified? What's the message in public declaration versus secret policy change? The message is we want everyone to know resolve changed. We want allies to feel safer. We want adversaries to think twice. Public announcement is the deterrence. If people don't know the doctrine changed, it doesn't deter. So he announced it. But announcing it also means adversaries can respond to it, and that's where escalation spiral risk emerges. That's the calculation everyone just made. So doctrine shifted, military postures shifted, markets recalculated, international positioning changed, all in 4 hours. The question now is, does this prevent conflict or accelerate it? To answer that, we need to understand the historical precedent. What happens when a major power publicly shifts its nuclear command authority? To answer that, we need to look at historical precedent. We've seen this before. During the Cold War, Soviet Union did something similar. When they felt conventional military capability was falling behind NATO's, they made a doctrine shift toward lower threshold for nuclear response. They announced it publicly. Their thinking was strategic. If people know we'll respond faster, they won't test us in the first place. That's called deterrence through credible threat. It's also called escalation through credible threat if you get it wrong. In military planning, there's something called an OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act. The side that completes that loop faster wins in warfare. In conventional warfare, that's measured in minutes, sometimes hours. In nuclear response, it's measured in seconds. When Trump changes the command authority window, he's essentially saying, our OODA loop just got faster. Faster loop means more lethal response. Faster loop also means less time to reconsider. That's strategy, but it's also risk. Look at what's happening right now in the Persian Gulf and around Taiwan. If there's a limited conventional strike somewhere, old doctrine said, evaluate for hours, check with allies, get formal authorization, authorize response, complete OODA loop, takes 18 to 24 hours minimum. New doctrine says respond within 15 minutes if certain conditions are met. That's a complete doctrine shift. It's moving from measured response to automatic response under specific conditions. That feels reckless until you realize the alternative was accepting testing without response capability. But it also means hair trigger response. The timing of this doctrine shift tells you what Trump's thinking about. Recent Iranian exercises, recent Chinese military activity, recent Russian positioning. Each was testing whether US would actually respond militarily. Each time response was delayed or cautious. That hesitation was interpreted as weakness. So Trump's saying, hesitation is over, response will be automatic if conditions met. He's trying to break that cycle of testing. He's trying to signal, stop testing, escalation ladder just got tighter. But here's the strategic gamble. If you lower the threshold for nuclear response, you also lower the threshold for nuclear escalation. Adversaries can calculate that too. So they respond to faster threat with faster escalation. If we lower our threshold, they lower theirs. That's the cascade. That's what every military analyst is calculating right now. One side moves the escalation ladder up one rung, other side has to respond or accept subordinate position, but if they respond, ladder moves up again. This is how escalation spirals start. This makes strategic sense if you believe the only thing stopping adversaries is they don't think we'll respond. But what if you're wrong? What if they're not testing to see if we respond? What if they're testing something else? That's the uncertainty. That's why doctrine shifts are so dangerous. They're based on assumptions about what stops adversaries. If assumptions are wrong, everything backfires. Which brings us to the escalation trajectory. If this continues, where does this go? Because doctrine shifts create cascading responses, and speed is accelerating. Right now we're at elevated but not crisis level. Doctrine changed, markets priced it in, adversaries are analyzing, military postures on alert. This is unstable. It can't stay here. Doctrine changes create cascades. Something has to give. Level 1 is what we're probably heading toward first. Russia responds with their own doctrine announcement. We've also changed doctrine to include automatic response if certain conditions met. China signals similar change. No military action yet, just doctrine matching. But now both sides have faster response thresholds. Tension elevated, deadliness potential increases, but still strategic signaling, still in negotiable territory. Level 2 is where military contact starts. Some limited military encounter happens, maybe in Persian Gulf, maybe proxy forces, Taiwan area, somewhere testing ground. Both sides interpret this as testing new doctrines in real scenario. Escalation spiral begins. One side responds faster than expected, other side escalates to compensate, spiral accelerates, tension reaches something close to Cuban Missile Crisis levels. Governments start running contingency plans, military gets more control, diplomacy gets less control. Level 3, and I need to be direct about this, is where you risk actual nuclear scenario. At some point in this cascade, somebody makes a military decision that feels limited to them, defensive strike, protective measure, something justified in their calculation, but it crosses a line for the other side. They respond at higher level than expected. Escalation spiral accelerates past control point. Command and control starts breaking down, partly because things are happening too fast. Decisions are being made in minutes when they used to take hours. Someone miscalculates, someone misinterprets, someone thinks they're responding defensively when other side sees it as escalation. That's level 3. That's where you risk actual nuclear exchange. Now here's the question that keeps analysts awake at night. Does anyone actually want escalation this far? No, probably not. But escalation spirals don't require anyone to want it. They require miscalculation. They require systems moving faster than diplomacy can match. They require speed without sufficient time for verification or reconsideration. That's exactly the scenario this doctrine shift creates. Speed without control, automatic response without manual override capability, that's dangerous. And here's what makes it more dangerous. We're not just dealing with Russia and US, we've got China involved, we've got Iran, we've got asymmetric actors, we've got multiple military systems operating simultaneously. One miscalculation in one theater could trigger cascade in another theater. One commander misreading signals could trigger unintended escalation. One automated system executing doctrine without human judgment could start something nobody can stop. But here's where this gets complicated, because the world isn't that simple. There are factors. All this analysis is missing. Here's where this gets complicated. Trump's not acting in a vacuum. He's responding to real military pressure. China has been testing US resolve. Russia is pressing NATO boundaries. Iran is conducting proxy operations. His doctrine shift feels reckless until you realize the alternative was accepting continued testing without response capability. So is he escalating? Yes. But he's also responding to escalation already happening. Context matters. This isn't just him being aggressive. This is him responding to aggression. One factor that's missing missing from most analysis. What if Trump knows something about adversary intentions that's not public? What if intelligence suggests something specific about what's being planned? Military leaders often have information the public doesn't. His doctrine shift might be responding to specific intelligence about threat level, not just general posture. We can see what he announced publicly. We can't see classified briefings that might justify it. I can analyze the logic, I can look at historical precedent, but I can't see what his intelligence directors are telling him about actual threat. Here's a contradiction that needs addressing. If Trump really believes US needs to move faster on nuclear response, why announce it publicly where adversaries hear? Wouldn't strategic advantage go to whoever doesn't announce? The answer is, sometimes you announce specifically because you want adversaries to know. Announcement is the strategy itself. It's deterrence through credible threat. But that only works if they believe you'll actually follow through, and that's the calculation everyone just made. Here's what I can't know: whether this doctrine shift will actually deter adversaries or provoke them. I can analyze the logic, I can look at historical cases, Cold War examples support the deterrence theory, but outcome depends on factors I don't have access to. All I can tell you is the risk increased. Whether that's worth it depends on what Trump knows about threat level. I don't have access to those briefings, you don't either. This is honest uncertainty, not speculation, not fear, just acknowledgement that the complete picture is bigger than what's public. That's important to understand because it means my analysis is based on public information. Intelligence could show this was absolutely necessary, or it could show this was unnecessary risk. I don't know, and anyone telling you they know with certainty is overconfident. Now let's look at who else is affected by this, because this doesn't just impact Trump, Russia, and China. This isn't just about US, Russia, China triangle. Everyone's affected. NATO allies are affected. Japan is affected. Taiwan is affected. India is affected. Middle East politics shift with doctrine change. Global stability calculation changes for everyone. That's why markets move so fast. Investors are repricing not just US military risk. They're repricing global stability risk. NATO allies care about specific things. Is US more likely to respond militarily in Europe? Does this make them safer or riskier? Does this escalate their risk of being drawn into conflict? Japan cares about Taiwan's scenario. What does this doctrine shift mean for Taiwan? Does it make US more likely to intervene? China cares about how US calculates Taiwan defense. India cares about implications for Pakistan's scenario. Each one is asking the same question: do I benefit from faster US response, or do I get drawn into conflict I don't want? Everyone's making calculated moves based on this signal. NATO's starting to position differently. They're accelerating defense spending, moving troops, restructuring deployments. Japan's accelerating military announcements. They're announcing fighter jet programs, missile defense upgrades. Things that were 3-year plans are now 1-year plans. India's watching Beijing for signals about how seriously China takes this shift. They're repositioning forces in mountain regions. Iran's messaging has shifted from defiant to measured. They're saying appropriate response, which is coded language for we're preparing something but not immediately. And here's the ground level economic consequence. Your life just got more expensive. Oil prices rise because Middle East risk increases. When oil rises, everything rises. Tech stocks fall because China risk increases. When market risk reprices, everything gets more expensive. Defense stocks surge. That affects pension funds. Insurance costs rise for shipping. That affects supply chains. Your food costs potentially rise. Military contracts get rewritten with faster timelines. Manufacturing gets accelerated. Supply chains get disrupted preparing for conflict scenario. These aren't theoretical, they're happening today. Your energy costs shift, your food costs shift, your investment portfolios repriced, your insurance premiums adjusted. These are real economic consequences from doctrine shift, and they're global because military doctrine is global concern. Which brings me to my expert assessment. After analyzing doctrine, history, and global implications, here's what I think actually matters. As a fighter pilot who's studied nuclear command and control, I want to be direct about what I see here. Trump's doctrine shift signals he believes conventional deterrence failed. He's moving the threat ladder up because the lower rungs didn't work. That's not inherently reckless, it's responding to reality that deterrence broke down. I've been in cockpits where split-second decisions determined outcomes. I've studied command structures that function under extreme time pressure. I understand both the logic of faster decision and the danger of no time to reconsider. From that experience, I can tell you, doctrine changes that compress decision timelines are dangerous. They work if nobody makes mistakes, but someone always makes mistakes. What mainstream analysis is missing? This doctrine shift likely isn't just about nuclear response. It's about global messaging. Trump's signaling to everyone simultaneously, allies, adversaries, Congress, markets, that his administration is done with strategic patience. That's the real message. Nuclear doctrine is the vehicle. Congress sees we've changed military posture. Allies see we're committed to defense. Adversaries see calculations have changed. Everyone gets a different message from same statement. This moment represents a strategic inflection point. We're moving from an era of nuclear restraint, post-Cold War thinking, back toward nuclear competition mindset. Cold War thinking, that's not unusual historically. Great powers cycle between restraint and competition, but what's notable is how fast this shift happened and how publicly it's being announced. Usually these shifts happen gradually, privately, in war colleges. Policymakers debate for years in secure briefings. This shift happened in days, announced to the world. That's aggressive signaling, that's intentional message. Here's what I'm watching. In next 3 to 6 months, we'll see whether adversaries match this doctrine shift with their own, or whether they interpret it as negotiating position. If they match it, we're in a much more dangerous era. Everyone's trigger finger is closer. If they see it as negotiating position, we might be heading toward new talks. The real tell will be whether military activity increases or decreases in next 90 days. That's where we'll see if this prevents conflict or accelerates it. My assessment, Trump's gambling that faster response prevents conflict. Historically, that bet sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. We're about to find out which dot, so here's what happened. Trump announced doctrine change on nuclear response authority. Markets immediately understood and priced in different risk calculation. That wasn't panic, that was investors understanding that command and control windows just got smaller. Adversaries understood it too. Military postures shifted globally. The escalation ladder moved up one rung. Here's where I land on this. Trump's doctrine shift makes strategic sense if you believe conventional deterrence has failed, and there's evidence it has, but it's also a calculated gamble that faster response prevents conflict rather than accelerates it. That gamble might work. History shows doctrine shifts sometimes deter, sometimes they backfire. The next 90 to 180 days will tell us which. My concern isn't the strategy itself, it's that doctrine shifts like this create momentum. Once set in motion, they're hard to reverse. Countries respond, countries counter-respond. Spiral gets harder to break. So this matters. I'll be tracking this closely. Next updates when adversaries officially match this doctrine shift, military incidents test the new posture, or negotiations change the trajectory. These are the developments that tell us if this strategy is working or backfiring. What do you guys think? Does Trump's doctrine shift feel like necessary reset or dangerous escalation? Does it prevent conflict or accelerate it? Let me know in the comments below. That conversation shapes how I understand this situation. If this breakdown is helping you actually understand nuclear doctrine and strategy, not just headlines, hit that like button. Subscribe to keep up with these real-time analyses. The world's moving fast right now. You'll want updates when things shift. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, also known as the guy who explains nuclear doctrine before it becomes the evening news, signing off. See you on the next one.